Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our inaugural First Generation Hour. I'm Ginette Saimprevil, the Bottom Line alum and the Executive Director of Massachusetts. I graduated from New Mission High School in 2000, and I also graduated from Bowdoin College in 2004. Joining me this morning is Malachi Hernandez, and I'll give him a chance to introduce himself as well.
Yep. Good morning, everyone. My name is Malachi Hernandez. I'm currently the Mobile Enterprise Manager for the City of Boston. I just graduated Northeastern University, the class of 2020, and I also graduated Boston Latin Academy in the class of 2016. Thank you for having me.
So good to have you here, and I'm so excited to have this conversation with you, Malachi. During these discussions, our hope is that we want to elevate the stories and achievement of people who identify as first-generation college graduates, and we also hope that we can showcase challenges, talk through some of the past successes, and talk about the way Bottom Line supports students in and through college. During this event, we're going to field some questions from the audience, so please submit them at the bottom on the Q&A feature. I want to let you all know that this session is being recorded, and we will make this available via our social media channels after this event. Again, this is our very first event. There'll be more to come, so stay tuned for more sessions. So are you ready to get started, Malachi?
I'm ready.
Awesome. I have the first question for you. I'm curious to hear how Bottom Line has made a difference for you in your journey.
Oh, Bottom Line, it has been a tremendous help. Starting in my senior year of high school when I first got involved, they were super, super supportive in helping me to identify what colleges do I want to go to and look into, understanding the process in its totality, which I really didn't have a deep grasp on as a first generation college student. Being able to assist me with my essay, my FAFSA, and then even getting into college and being able to have that mentor, have that support figure through my entire experience for the entire 4 years was tremendous. I knew that every month I could go back to those meetings and rely on Bottom Line. If there were questions that I had with anything when it came to my academics or study abroad or financial aid or whatever it was, I always knew that there was a support figure of not just one person, because they were just a representative of Bottom Line on my campus, but there was a multitude of people behind the scenes who were willing to support me in any way, and that was tremendous. And having that type of support from Bottom Line, it just felt like there was so much love. You know what I mean? Like being in Northeastern as a full-time student and spending the night there every night, you can sometimes feel alone at first, right? And when you're finally stepping away from your home for the first time, it feels a bit different. But knowing that I could receive care packages, which is one of the biggest things that I love, and reading the messages and getting candy and those types of things made me feel super, super welcome, super appreciated, and super loved. But again, above all, just being able to stay connected to a larger network is something that I appreciated the most from Bottom Line, and something that I hold dear to my heart even to this day. Because everywhere that you go, especially in Boston, you always come across different Bottom Line alums. And I've seen so many individuals in government, in my field where I'm like, oh, you guys, you were a Bottom Line alum, 2005 or something. I'm like, get out of here. So just being able to tap into that network and look out for one another in that way is super, super helpful.
That's so awesome. So many of the things you said resonated with me, and I'm like, yes. Really felt mentorship. I really appreciated the honesty and the realness that my advisor had with me at the time. But the one thing I want to highlight was around financial aid. When I was completing my financial aid, I kind of took a pass at it at first because I, wanted to get it done, and I kept putting in numbers where I didn't even understand the question.
Same.
Right? So imagine if I submit that and not receive any aid, and
right.
help me and ensure that I was eligible. I got the financial aid that I was eligible for. So that was so clutch for me year after year after year to ensure that somebody has a chance to look over my applications, also read over my financial aid awards, and make sure that if something was missing, we're able to advocate for it.
Right.
So all of the things you said, but I definitely wanted to highlight the financial aid piece because that was clutch for me and my family, because there was no way we could have afforded college without financial aid support. So
right, exactly, yeah. And that kind of leads me to asking the next question. I wanted to ask you, being in college and not knowing how to certainly navigate certain spaces, did you ever feel like an imposter? And did you ever feel like you had some sort of imposter syndrome while attending college? Because I know that there was moments where, of course, I mean, I experienced that. And I think that being in a PWI, you definitely will experience that a lot. But I want to ask not only if you had that, but how did you overcome that?
Yeah, good question. And the answer to the first part of your question is yes and yes and yes. Like I tell this story a lot. My first day of class, orientation went great. I was able to engage with some people and meet some friends during orientation. But first day of class, democracy in the U.S. I got in the class and my peers started talking about Socrates and Plato and books that they've read that I have never even heard of. And
Mm,
sounded so much more eloquent than I could ever imagine.
right,
Um,
right.
I remember leaving the class feeling defeated and wondering,
Mm,
did I make the right choice? And I went
wow,
to see my dean. And the words that came out of my mouth was, I want to transfer because I don't belong here. I felt
wow,
like I couldn't compete with them, not even compete, but I couldn't engage in the same conversations that
wow.
they were having because I didn't understand half the stuff. It felt like they already had the class and I just came in to hear.
Right, right.
I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't think I'm in the right
Yeah,
place. I don't think it's the right place for me. Thankfully, my dean saw the humor in it somehow.
yeah.
And the only thing he asked me to do is he was just like, do you want to give it one more week? Like, just give it a week.
Mm,
And I think that was it for me. I kept making the decision every single day to get up and go back to class,
right,
to get up and try, right? And remembered um, that I was accepted, right? So that means
right,
somebody thought that I could make it. Dave,
for
my
sure.
line advisor knew that I could make it up there. So it's making that decision and using the resources that I had on campus, whether it was my peers, people who looked like me, the few of us. I was a posse scholar as well. So like I used
Posse?
my posse and also use the deans who were so invested in me and make sure that I was open and honest with them about what
Right,
I was
right.
feeling. I'm curious to hear about you.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on actually to the ending component, like I think that having a village of supporters behind you is super, super
Mhm.
helpful. And I think that that's one component that I learned in college. Like, who are those people in my life that actually support me? What are the organizations that actually support me? Um, you know, how do I go to my family, for support sometimes emotionally, or physically or spiritually when I'm down, right? And for me, like that was going to my grandmother, or going to my brothers, my mom and stuff, my stepfather. But also recognizing that you also have to branch out of what you're comfortable with, which
Yep.
is usually like your home environment, and creating a new community in that campus space. And for me, that was resorting to upperclassmen that looked like me, that had similar backgrounds, that understood the environment and culture of Northeastern University, and were
Yeah.
able to kind of give me their experiences and share with me their lessons learned, to help me navigate the space of Northeastern, because it's something that's very, very unique. But one thing that had gotten me the most was like my study abroads. I mean, I was going on these trips and coming from a low income environment, born and raised in Upham's Corner, Dorchester, and then going to Greece, going to Santorini, going to Cape Town, South Africa, with people who literally, like, from the conversations that I had, were just like millionaires. Like, it was just
Yeah.
evident. People were like losing their iPhones and they're like, oh, don't worry, daddy's gonna buy me a new one. And I'm like, oh, I would have freaked out type thing. And it's just one of those things where, like, I can't even relate, right? But I always question myself, do I fit in? Am I worthy enough to be here, right? But then when I reflect on my experiences, where I reflect on where I came from in my life journey, I do have that right to be here. I did what it took. I filled out the same college application, and I got the same grades, and I got I did all that effort. So I am deserving to be in this space, and kind of telling myself that throughout my college experience is what kind of pushed me, motivated me to wake up the next day and say, okay, I'm just as great as this person is. They're no better than me. At the end of the day, we're both here to achieve a bachelor's degree, right? So that's what it was. And again, having that village of supporters in the background is what really, really kept me pushing.
That's awesome. You almost made me want to start shouting. But I know we talked about our college experiences. I want to kind of step back a little bit and
Yeah.
ask you to think through your admission process, right? Like,
Mm.
it has impacted your experience as a first gen, and kind of talk a little bit about any positive or negative experiences when you thought about when you think about your college application process.
Yeah, so I mean, my college application process was very, very unique because of the fact that I was a torch scholar at the university. So I had to go through a very individual process that was like, you either get into Northeastern with this full ride scholarship or you don't.
Okay.
And there was like a series of interviews and, like group projects and stuff like that during that process. So that's what kind of made it unique. But what I can say is that going through that process and then getting into the university and then connecting with individuals of color, individuals that have shared experiences with me, and recognizing the original process, right? It kind of opened up my eyes to the inequities that exist in the college process and how difficult it is to sometimes even obtain financial aid. And those are some of the privileges, right, that I didn't have to kind of ponder on throughout my time there at Northeastern. I had my dining dollars paid for, I had my laundry bucks paid for, meal plans, etc. So those are concerns that for me, I was like, how do I take my experiences, but then also reflect on it so that way I can make sure that I'm, being considerate of the next person. And that's exactly what I had to do. I had to put myself in somebody else's shoes, right, for once. And I was like, okay, so what does that look like for low income students that don't have the privilege of getting a full ride scholarship, right? They have to take out loans, they have to take out financial aid, stuff like that. So going through that process really opened up my eyes to what does exist, and some of the injustices that occur within the admissions process. And now it's like, okay, what could I do in my effort and my time as a graduate to give back? And that's something that I've been been doing, especially like the last year. Like I was like, okay, how could I help incoming college students with their college essays, right? Like I can edit it, right? I can look at your resume, and it's something that I've been that I've committed to do for myself, for others. And how about yourself?
That's awesome. That resonates a lot. And I think for me, I immigrated from Haiti, right? So I had to learn the English language, and it felt like during my application process, I had to learn the language of
Wow.
of the colleges.
Wow.
What some of the things that they were asking for, the documents, and all of that, just kind of learning how to navigate that, because my parents didn't speak English, they didn't go to
Right.
college, so they didn't have a window. And
Right.
so it seemed really daunting, and I'm really grateful for the support that Bottom Line provided and made it so clear for
Right.
me. And
Right.
I don't know if you remember this, but we love charts, right? So there was like
Yeah.
charts about, am I going to take my SATs, right? What are the colleges? What are the accepted? Like, what do I need to do? So like following that step, and made it more accessible to me,
Right.
and make that process so much easier. And as you talk about giving back, I think this is why I'm still here, at Bottom Line, right? This is my 15th year. I just celebrated 14 years
Yeah.
in June, here at Bottom Line. So this is the way that I can contribute and kind of give back to my community, and ensure that students like myself have the opportunity and access to
For
colleges.
sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I actually want to ask you too, because there's like a beauty in being a first generation college student, right? And I don't know if you remember the time when either of you, like, you got the award letter or you got the phone call or whatever it was. For me, it was a phone call. But I wanted to ask you, do you remember when you were accepted into college, and can you share a little bit about that experience?
Oh, I remember. It was a phone call for me as well. We were in the kitchen getting ready for dinner, and the phone rang. So I applied to Bowdoin through the Posse scholarship, and they called me, and it was just like, when they told me, they're like, yeah, we're gonna accept you as a Posse scholar to go to Bowdoin. And I was on the phone speaking English, and I kind of just like fell to the ground, and my mom got up and was like, is everything okay? Like, what happened? And I told her, and I think I like whispered it because I was like, maybe I can't say it too loud.
Yeah.
And she just began to celebrate. We were so excited and so happy. And I remember just thanking Nora so much. She was the Posse director who called. Like, I remember just thanking her a lot for it, and we were so excited. And my mom, my mom was just like, this is it, right? Because that was the only way I was going to be at an OA school through a scholarship, and we're so excited
Right.
to happen. Let me know about yourself.
Oh, that's a beautiful story. No, yeah, mine was so I for Torch, I was they had called me over I think it was FaceTime or Skype or something like that, and they had asked me like a question like, oh, um, they said like, oh, we forgot to ask you a question in the interview, which I thought was like legit because actually in my interview process, there was like a professor who had came into the room and started like literally taking out tables like mid interview, and I was like freaking. I was like, is this like normal? Like, are they like testing me to see if I'm gonna help type thing? So it was one of like those weird things, but they had asked me like, oh, like how are you a leader like in Boston or something like that. And like the second question was more of like, oh, like congratulations, you've been awarded a scholarship. And I remember I went home and I was sitting at my grandmother's kitchen, and for literally like 20-30 minutes I didn't know how to tell her because like I knew that I was just awarded like the opportunity of a lifetime, right? Like a full ride scholarship to like one of the best schools in the nation. So I was like holding it in. I was like, is it that serious? Is it not that serious? Like, I don't know if I should tell her. And then, she was cooking and stuff. And I eventually just like told her, I was like, oh, like I call her mommy. So I was like, mommy, like I got the scholarship. And she was like, what? So it was like that. And then a couple minutes later, my mom and my younger brothers they came home from grocery shopping. And my mom had dropped a gallon of milk and like splattered everywhere on the back stairs and stuff like that. And we was just like so happy. But it was one of those things where my family got to see like the hard work and the determination and the grit and all the energy that I had put into like, my middle school, high school years, and all of my time in extracurriculars, and now being able to have something that like I wanted, and being able to now pave that way for my family, for my younger brothers, like the next generation, like, so many community leaders that are like, my age around me and stuff, and my like just everybody in Dorchester and stuff was so, so huge. And that's something that I really, really just feel so inspired by. I didn't really see that growing up. I didn't like, a couple of my cousins went to college, but like it didn't really hit me until like it was my turn and my chance to really apply and say, okay, like why do I want to go to college? What do I want to major in? Like where do I want to go to school? And having that, autonomy to say I'm gonna do this for myself and I get to choose for once was like super, super huge.
Yeah, that's so awesome. And, this is such a great conversation. I had a question for you about like how you were going to pay it forward, like hearing sort of the acceptance
Yeah.
and how happy your family was. And you started talking about that a little bit earlier about like helping your community and other students with their essays and so on. If you want to add to that, that's great. But I'm hoping that maybe we can switch over to some of the Q&As. Like I saw one, I think that fits perfectly right now. It's if someone wants to know, like, how does being a first-gen college graduate influence your professional identity in the workplace? I'm curious to hear your thoughts about that.
Yeah, I think that as a first generation college student, and actually this is a great question because I recently got employed by the city of Boston in July after graduating in May. But being a first generation college student hits different. I think that you have to learn how to navigate a new world. Um, like there were so many things that I didn't understand with my job, and I'm just gonna be honest, like health insurance, like what is that, right? Like how do I know like the difference in prices and stuff like that? Like what are the benefits? What is PTO? All of these things that I really didn't hear growing up in my family. But let alone, coming from a lot of like political internships where some of them were unpaid, right? So it's like those are conversations that I really didn't know how to navigate. And thanks to like my girlfriend and her family, they were able to teach me some things. And of course, like through my own research, but also being the youngest, like I think I'm like the youngest in my department right now, which is like great. I just found that out like last week, and I'm like, I'm 22, everybody else is like 28, 29. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a baby. But knowing that I can rely on them for experience if I need it is super rewarding. But then also knowing that like I have a shot at this, right? And like I'm paving the way for people who look like me, who come from again similar backgrounds as I do. And now it kind of puts me into a position where like if I ever were to become like a hiring director, manager, whatever it is, now like that's something that I'm going to look out for. Like, were you a first generation college student? Did you attend bottom line? Or, what are some of the skills that you think that you could obtain and bring into this workplace as a first generation college student? What are some of the adversities? And I kind of think that operating it from that lens makes me kind of like stand on my own 2 feet and always keep myself in check, which is something that I would love to do anywhere that I go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I think
Yeah.
you know, for me being with an organization that like supported me so much and is supporting Fresh Generation, my sharing that identity helps bring the joy and the passion of this work. It makes it more alive for me, and it gets me really excited to work here and to continue to be here because I can remember, right? And I
Right,
can
right,
remember how it was like, and I think it's so helpful to bring in and meet a lot of the different staff that we have and see the way that they're building such strong relationships with their students. I see a really quick impact because it
for
definitely warms,
sure.
right?
Yeah,
And it helps me to keep going, honestly, because I
right,
know what
right,
um, Dave's support did for me, what Aaron's like. I'm just like gonna start naming all my advisors right now, but what all of
right.
their support meant for me and my family, and I see that happening as we continue to improve and support and help our students in and through college. So it's really
Right. Yeah, that's beautiful. And I wanted to ask too, I mean, like we're in a very, very unique time.
yeah.
Um, and especially like COVID, right? I think COVID-19 has taken this year, 2020, people are like, what do we do next? What's coming next? But I wanted to ask, how has COVID impacted the ability of students like you to continue your studies?
Mm-hmm, hmm. You know, that's a good question. I think um, I was having a conversation yesterday with another bottom line alum who's a teacher right now, and we were just sort of thinking through the disparities that were like that are like our school, like Boston Public Schools, and the things that we
Right,
didn't have or needed more of, and so thinking about um, just the motivation that's needed to stay on the screen and stay focused, and thinking about like students who may need to support their families, whether it's about translating whatever letter comes in in terms of like, do they have all the equipment and all the materials like reliable internet that they need.
right,
I think it has a really, really strong impact, right? Like being
for
able
sure.
to be in the environment with your friends and peers to study and to be motivated, and being in the house where that may not be happening at the same,
Right,
I think could be hard, right? Like, so we were just talking about that, in the tension, I guess is the word I'm looking for, that we felt around like opening schools back up and
right,
being at home, right? Like, so what does that mean for our students? Like, is the focus, can the focus really
right.
be there? Do they have what
Yeah.
they need? And I think that's a hard thing.
For sure. No, definitely. I actually want to highlight like the component around internet. I think that it's something that's super, super, super important. And like, although that I graduated college, of course, working from home, and having to use Wi-Fi to do my job every day, right? But like I have, two younger brothers who are full-time students in like middle school and high school. And we're all sharing the same network. Of course, you have everybody else in the household who's on the same Wi-Fi and stuff. And, recognizing like, we have the privilege of having Wi-Fi here, but like there are literally students out there in Boston who do not have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Or they can't even afford, like the minimum of, I think like Xfinity is offering like this like reduced program for low income students and stuff. And, it's not even, like the best of the best Wi-Fi. So it's like it can crash at any time. And just like recognizing the privileges is something that, that I have, is something that COVID has really, really taught me. But it's a matter of like, how do you take this pandemic and make sure that you're giving back in any way? Like there's no way that's too small. Like anything goes a long way during this time of COVID. And that's something that like I think is super, super important, because there are so many students across the city who are struggling, right? Students who some don't even have Chromebooks still. And when it comes to, like numbers rising potentially in like a couple weeks or so, like it's going to be scary if students have to go back and stuff like that. So it's like, how do we keep each other safe? How do we keep each other sane?
Yeah.
We've been in this for a while and we don't even know how much longer we have left. So it's one of those things where it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
But like, recognizing too, like Christmas is around, the corner. And like, I was literally just brainstorming with my family, like, okay, so what are some Christmas presents that we can get? How can we all chip in to like make the cost lower for all of us, right? Like, it's one of those things where it's like we have to like plan in advance with this thing, because you just never know with COVID.
Yeah. No, that's great. I just want to remind everybody we are now fielding questions from the Q&A feature on Zoom. So please keep the questions coming. Malachi, this is a very good question. From Deborah, did Bottom Line help you think through what major to select? And how tightly was it connected to the job you were able to get coming out of college?
Ooh.
And then the other piece, like, did you even know what you wanted to do once you graduated?
Oh, that's an amazing question. I love this question a lot. And I say that because I went into Northeastern as a political science and communication studies major. And then I literally, in my freshman year alone, I think I changed it about 4 to 5 times. And then I went back at the end of my freshman year to literally with what I started, poli sci and comm. And then that's what I ended up majoring in. But I would say that the thing about college was that my freshman year up to my senior year, I can say that I'm a very different person and my interests have changed. And, before or around like my freshman year, around like, graduating high school, I was super interested in like running for public office. Like, oh, I want to get into politics, and that was it. But then I realized, what are some other opportunities that exist out there in the world? What are some other areas that Malachi wants to explore, right? Like not just other people that are imposing, their visions on my life for their own benefit, right? Just being real. So then I kind of got into a space of like, oh, like business is something that I'm interested in, right? Like, how can I learn more about how to create a business and what is entrepreneurship? What is marketing? What does that look like? I've never had conversations like that, growing up in my household. And it's something that I'm really passionate about. And real estate investing is a personal interest of mine, right? So it's like my junior and senior year, I kind of felt bad, and I was like, oh, I wish that I would have gotten like a business degree rather than like a poli sci degree. But I realized that there is always an opportunity to go for a master's, and it's always okay to not major in something that like you wish that you would have, right? That's just completely okay. But the beauty of it was like when I had the chance to graduate, I then was able to say, okay, where am I at now? Where was I then? Where do I want to go in the future, and what job is going to allow me to get there? I'm looking at the responsibilities, I'm looking at the qualifications, not just for now, but I'm looking at that second job and that third job, and what do I need to get there? And is this first job going to benefit me and set me up now for the future? That's kind of how I was looking at it. So to answer your question, Deborah, it's okay if you don't know, right? And I think that there's a lot of students who don't know, and you can change your time. Yeah, you can change your mind numerous times, and that's completely okay. But just recognizing that, those 4 years, like, yeah, you got to do it and you got to major in something. But there's people who I know literally majored in physical, like physical therapy, and literally are serving in government. And I'm like, where is the correlation, right? So it's like one of those things where it's okay. It's okay if you don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, like, for me, and you were so put together, Malachi. Like for me, Bottom Line didn't necessarily help me with a major, but it like helped me think through, like you were saying, like, is this something that I enjoy doing? And what am I going to be able to graduate with that degree, right?
Right.
That's it. Like, I loved biology, at least in high school, and then I got to Bio 101, and I don't know what happened. It's like,
Right.
I enjoyed science, and I thought like we had tutors and all of that stuff, and it was like really it was a hard transition, and I struggled a lot. And it was a really interesting conversation to think about. Like, yes, you like biology. Do you want to be a doctor? And I was like, no. Did you want to be a nurse? Like, no. So thinking about studying and graduating with a strong GPA, so that the next step in my future, whether it's my career or wanting to go to graduate school, that I would be able to do so. So that was one of the things that the Bottom Line helped me to think about. But they also wanted to make sure it's something that I was learning and enjoyed,
Right.
and did well in. I did not know what I wanted to do
Right.
after graduation. And as you said, Malachi, it changed so many times. At first, I was
For
like, "Oh,
sure.
I want to go into advertising. I wanted to
Right.
be a lawyer." I didn't know a lot of it,
Right.
but through a lot of the experiences, through Bottom Line, I had a couple of internships. I interned at the Boston Lawyers Group, At one point, when I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, I interned at citizen schools one summer as well. So doing the law and education, and I was like, oh, I don't
Right.
want to be a lawyer. I don't want to be a teacher, right? But there was like this moment I was like, I don't know what to do. And after graduation, I worked at Res Life
Right.
and at Bowdoin College, and that's when I was like, this is interesting. Higher
Right.
education and supporting students. This is a passion.
Exactly.
And as I mentored and advised some students on campus, it was really great to watch the transformation from the first semester to like their sophomore year, right? It was
Right.
so interesting. And I was like, this is what I want to do. Because I was right there where they were, stepping onto Bowdoin's campus and
Exactly.
experiencing sort of like this culture shock, if you will,
Exactly.
and watch them sort of adapt and grow and understand the opportunity that was given to them. And so that's why
For
I
sure.
this.
And I think that that's like kind of like the beauty of bottom line, right? Like you
Mhm.
are able to get tapped into such a large network
Yeah,
and get connected to other programs that exist in this city and take advantage of them. And recognizing too, like it doesn't have to be permanent. Like you're not doing it for a lifetime. You're not married to it, right? Like it's just like a 3 to 6 month period, sometimes 12, like if you get lucky or something like that. But being able to take on those opportunities, but then also having the network of the bottom line staff at your disposal and being able to contact them in so many different, who have served in many different fields and have their own personal connections outside of bottom line. You can tap in like, oh, if I want to be a lawyer, like who in bottom line knows law, right? Like who is connected to like, I don't know, BU law school or something like that. And then like bottom line will literally hunt these people down for you. Like they do that like every day. And that's like, I love that so much because like, I remember, I think I was like applying for something at like one of the banks in Boston. And like, I think Cara was like trying to help me out, trying to find somebody at like one of these banks. She was like, we will find them. Like she actually did. And I was like, whoa, like, she was like, I don't know who they are, but we're going to find them, right? And just like having that beauty of literally having support figures behind you and helping young college students get the opportunities that they want is something that I admire the most about bottom line. And it kind of leads me into asking like, did you ever have like a formal mentor? And if so, what has been the most important support that they have provided for you?
yeah, I did. I did have a formal mentor in college, as I mentioned through the posse program. My mentor was amazing, and I think the biggest support he provided was that he was a first generation college graduate. He went to Bowdoin and he experienced some of the same feelings and the same things that I got through, he got through it. And so watching him go through it and hearing him talk about it was amazing. Like he lived it. And so because of him, I was like, oh, I can do it too. Like
Right.
Will did it, right? And he was amazing. And he was the dean where I went to him to say I wanted to transfer, forget about it. And that support to just be like, you just need to give it one more week, and then saying that
Right.
he saw something in me, he knew that I could do it, didn't let me spiral.
Right.
And I think that's so helpful to help me, like he helped me be able to express my feelings and what I was going through, but then he pivoted, right, and had me think about what would it look like to do one more day or one more week.
Mm.
And that was so helpful because I was able to see past what I was feeling at the moment.
Right. Yeah. No, that's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, for me, it was like definitely with my scholarship program as well. Like one person that I can think of the most is probably Jackson. He was a tremendous help in terms of like literally like the onboarding phase and orientation phase of getting into Northeastern and like, explaining to me how rigorous it would be and being honest. And that's something that like I admired the most about these mentors that I had in my life, especially in college, because everybody was so honest with me rather than like sugarcoating things. And as you're a student in college, honesty is going to help you transition into that adulthood phase.
Yeah.
And having somebody like him to push me, especially my mathematics, was something that I needed. Somebody who was always on top of that, checking in on me, like, how are you doing spiritually? Like, how is your family? And I would literally cry to him about like what's going on with things with my family back at home and stuff like that. And being able to be vulnerable while you know, having to navigate as a first generation college student, this PWI for 4 years and not really knowing how to do it so well, but putting my best foot forward on top of that is something that like, it was like a safe space, right? And I think that mentors for me have served as a safe space where I can, you know, be vulnerable and address my concerns and my needs in an environment where I know that, you know, I'm going to be benefiting from their experience and their connections, and, you know, just making them proud in that regard, you know, after completing and stuff like that.
Yeah. You know, this falls right in line. We talked about mentors.
Yeah.
There's a question about how did you perceive your college professors, right? So their role in relationship with them to support your learning. I think this is kind of right in line
Yeah.
with mentors. How is that for you?
There were certain, so in college, I always heard the like, oh, you know, like become close with your professors, you know, like you're gonna like, you know, you know them from a lifetime, and like there's some out there that are really good and stuff for you. And I didn't really feel that at first, and I felt bad because I would always hear that a lot. And I was like, where are these professors? Like, am I doing something wrong? But it wasn't until maybe like my junior or senior year when I really hit like my core classes, that I found those professors, and I was like, whoa, like these professors are smart. Like they're something else. And for me, it was like, okay, so what could I do to like, you know, learn more about them, you know, outside of the classroom? And I would always go to their office hours, and I would literally just like build with them. And, you know, like they would literally look out for me when it came to like internships, and even when it came to like getting closer to graduation and finding that first job and identifying some of my interests. You know, they were able to help me say, Malachi, these are your strengths and these are your weaknesses. This is where you may want to go, and this is where you may not want to go. And having that type of again, support figure and mentor, right, from my college professor, something that I would have never expected, because although like I seen a little bit of that in high school, wasn't the same.
Mhm.
But I think that their role is crucial to the development of students. And when you have professors that challenge you, it makes it 10 times better.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think there were moments where professors were intimidating
Yeah, for sure.
to me. Like, oh no, you know so much about your
Yeah,
line. Like, what do I do? But there's definitely a part where I know they've pushed and encouraged office hours for me, and I think that's when I started to get to know my professors. And a lot of them, I still, you know, I try to keep in touch with. Like, I ran into one of my English professors. A couple of months ago, and I was like, oh my God, look at, you know, and then, like, it was still amazing. So I did see them as a support, but I will say at the beginning, there was definitely this intimidation, and I didn't want to go
right,
to get help.
right.
I didn't want to, because I was afraid to admit, like, I didn't really understand the lecture today. And
Exactly,
but there was
exactly.
that push from Dave to be like, no, no, no. If you don't tell them you don't understand, you're not gonna be
Right, they will help you.
exactly. And they were so helpful
Yeah,
to me and for me. So that was amazing.
yeah. I wanna ask you, I know like we're pressed on time, and we
Yeah.
have to wrap up soon, but I think one question that probably want to close with is, um given the nature that we're in, right, with COVID, and being a first generation college student and having the great experiences that you and I have had in our lives, and we've been so fortunate enough to have, what is a piece of advice that you might give to current students in college, or, you know, high schoolers that are seniors right now, or juniors that are even considering college and going into college in like a year or two? What is one biggest piece of advice that you'd probably give
Yeah. Use your resources.
them?
Like it, you know, it's so great that you asked it, because I think it ties into what I was saying, like being nervous and being intimidated by my professors and not wanting to look like I didn't know what I was doing, right?
Right,
And I think the biggest thing that I've learned is that it's okay that you don't know, but like find that one person, find that,
right,
and whether it's in your high school or if you're a first year college student, like there are people who are emailing you, reaching out to you. Find that one person that can be that kind of support you, and they can start opening doors for me. It did
for sure.
a world of wonders for me, and I think it was from um it was from what I learned, right? Like knowing that I had somebody at bottom line and I saw them come through and follow through.
Right.
There are people out there, their role and their passion and the work that they do is to support and to make sure that we succeed.
Right.
And so you use them. It sounds weird to say, but like use them and be okay to use them, because
Right.
I'm a result of that. I'm a product of that, and don't be afraid to use them.
For sure. For sure. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I think for me, just to add on to that, like, it's not only so much about, at least from my experience, it wasn't only so much about like the resources, but also learning how to advocate for yourself.
Yes.
I think that I had to do that a lot in college. I was met with, pushback a lot from professors sometimes, where like, I didn't get the grade that I wanted and that I expected to receive. And, I would have to go to the office hours and say like, no, this is what was going on. Like, right. Like there was, this legitimate family circumstance that was affecting me so much that I literally had to be off campus for a week. And was staying up to 3 o'clock in the morning. Plus on top of that, having to come back and do this and do that and do that. And, just being able to be vulnerable like that and advocate for something that you wanted, or especially in the financial aid department, right? Like if their numbers are messed up, you need to go over there, you need to fight for that number, because that will affect you. Like that is going to be something that you have to pay back. And just advocating, if for yourself in many different ways across campus is super, super, super helpful. But it also teaches you a lot as an individual. It teaches you your voice. And as you graduate and you navigate this real world, and you go out and you find that first job, you find that second job, you're able to understand, okay, how do I negotiate my salary? And those are things that I literally was just met with a couple of months ago, right? Like graduating college, and I was afraid, like, how do I bring up money, right? Like, I don't even know how to do that. And thanks to Bottom Line, I was like, okay, who could I rely on and teach me, right? Like we did like mock interview type things and stuff like that. So having that type of experience was just amazing. But again, resources, A, and B, advocacy are two things that I would definitely recommend.
That is awesome. Oh, I know we could keep going forever.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you so much for such an energetic
Thank you.
conversation, and I can't wait to see and watch the other series here. But I want to make sure that I respect our audience's time. I want to thank you all for showing up. I want to thank you for your questions and for the way that you all have helped us to engage in this conversation. I can't wait to have more. Malachi, you were great. I wish we could talk about it all morning, but thank you so much for spending the first part of your morning with me. And we hope to have so many more in the near future, and we hope to have all of you as the audience. Again, thank you for our generous partners. Thank you for the many allies we have in this much important work. And as you can tell, we can talk about this all day. So I hope we can talk about I can't see the other folks who will come on. Thank you all and have a great day.
Have a good one. Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Bye-bye.